Alright, movie fans, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It ain't looking good. Last week was the worst Memorial Day weekend in decades. I am assuming there's going to be a couple stories like that this year. I don't know what movies they will be about. There are a couple movies that are expected to do pretty well. Deadpool, I would imagine Venom, Inside Out 2. But there's a lot of other movies now that I think movie studios are like, uh-oh, we might be in some trouble. And a lot of movie theaters are closing. We've seen that this year. It's been a bad year. And last year wasn't great either. In fact, there were a lot of movies that traditionally performed very well that last year did not. Obviously, certain Marvel movies, Fast and Furious movies did not perform particularly well. Indiana Jones did not perform particularly well. Like Barbie and Oppenheimer obviously made a lot of money. Those are two once-in-a-lifetime movies coming out at the same time. On one side, you had a movie that the first movie of its kind about a toy. I think you could easily make the case that Barbie is the most well-known toy in the world, one of the most popular names and like brands in toys and entertainment, Barbie. They made a movie starring a bunch of famous actors, Oscar winners, Oscar nominees, everybody was in there, had a big budget. It was directed and written by a big time director that everybody liked, another perennial Oscar contender. And it was pretty good. It wasn't perfect, but it was very good, and people got excited about it. At the same time, another one of our best directors, another frequent Oscar contender, made a biopic he's always wanted to make about scientifically one of the most influential people in, the last 100 years, let's say. That movie is also filled with every actor you've ever heard of. Well, really, it was every white actor you've ever heard of, and it was really good. It's like, those are two once-in-a-lifetime movies. Nolan is not going to be making an Oppenheimer every year. Like, remember, the last movie he made before this was Tenet, a movie that, some people like, but obviously was not a humongous hit. And while Barbie was a big hit, there's no other Barbie. They can make a sequel to Barbie, but that probably won't be as big of a cultural moment as the first Barbie movie. And they can try to spin off a million things from Barbie, which will definitely work and is something they should try. But take that away. Take those two once-in-a-lifetime movies away. What are we left with? A couple of big successes, Guardians, Mario, and then a lot of failures. Somewhere between movies that kind of made their money back and bombs. And I would say, just looking at the schedule, this year we're on track to do something quite similar. Now, I've seen Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. It's very good. Not my favorite movie ever, but they're traditionally not my thing as much as they are for some other people. But it's a movie I would recommend to people, but it didn't perform well. And that is unique because a lot of these other movies that haven't performed well this year, Kung Fu Panda, I wouldn't say did as well as they were hoping with. Ghostbusters didn't do as well as they were hoping. Sure, but neither of those movies were all that great. I don't think a lot of people are looking at the box office this year in February saying, well, something must be wrong. Argyle didn't make that much money. Look at how great it was. Some of these movies this year have been just not great. And there's other stuff. No May Marvel movie this year. Those tend to do pretty well. No DCEU movies this year. It's an interesting year. But because of that, a lot of people are scared that this is the end of movies. I think they're right to be scared about that. I think a lot of these signs have been pretty obvious for a while, but you know what? Sure. Putting all the movies on streaming immediately, probably not a great idea. And I think as the time we were this short term, I understand why they're doing this, but long term, this is going to cause some problems, and here they are. That's the past. But I want to talk about my things that I think we can do to save movies, because I can't explain it. I don't have the numbers. I have all kinds of anecdotal data, and all of it piled up together, I think equals something, right? People saying that their kids don't like movies, they like TikTok because movies are too long. Again, doesn't seem like it's all kids, but there's clearly some kids that this is true about, so they're not going to movies. People that are saying they don't go to movies because of COVID and don't want to get exposed to stuff. Maybe they have, a pre-existing condition that makes them extra vulnerable. Again, not everybody, but clearly those are some people not going to movies. People who can't afford it, either because movie theater tickets are so expensive or just because everything else is so expensive. And I've seen people saying, oh yeah, movie theater tickets have increased, but it's been kind of similar to how inflation has increased over time. That might be true, but the minimum wage hasn't increased for a lot of people. And that means that if things get more expensive, you have to stop doing some things, and movie theaters are going to be that for a lot of people. And also, a lot of them are more expensive for reasons that are stupid. I went to see Furiosa at an IMAX theater, but it wasn't an actual IMAX theater. It was just one of the ones that's like kind of fake IMAX, and that ticket costs extra money. So like there were all those gimmicks like 3D movies that cost extra money, or the one with the stupid walls on either side that also have a little bit of the movie. Like those are more expensive tickets, and sometimes those are the only tickets you can get at the time you want to see a movie or something like that. So the cost thing, it's something. People not hearing about movies, again, some people say, well, I heard about Furiosa. Well, you did, but a lot of people I talked to did not know it was out. Like they knew it existed, but they didn't know it was out this week. So clearly, all of those factors are adding up to something. Some amount of people not going to the movies. And maybe there are other bigger things at play, but I think that pretty much everything I've heard people say so far in these videos as an explanation, I more or less agree with. It all makes sense. How do we fix it? Well, I've seen people on film Twitter almost blaming audiences and kind of scolding them into like, people gotta go to the movies. You have to go save your cinema, go see The Fall Guy, spend your money and go see it instead of wait for it to come to your house for much less. Or even like when it comes to Netflix, and then it's pretty much free because you already pay for Netflix. But like, you should go to a theater because it's your duty to support it. It's nobody's job to go to the movies. This is an entertainment activity. It's art, but it is something that like, if you don't want to go, being told to go isn't going to make a difference. But I think there are people we can scold, and they need to be scolded. And it's not the studios, although I do think the studios made a lot of mistakes. It's not the advertisers, although I do think advertising movies has had an effect on how many people know about them and things like that. I believe personally, as someone who does not like going to see movies that much anymore, movie theaters need to change. That is the change that can be made. It is a change that is easily prescribed. It is tangible. It is a change that we can be specific with. And I'm not going to give you a big broad Sam Wilson like do better movie theaters. I'm going to give you specific examples of things that need to change. 3 things. First one, this is easily the most important for me. It is the thing that I have been yammering on about for years, but hey, look, now there's a problem. So this is maybe something we should do to address it. Ushers. We need ushers at movie theaters. And even the movie theaters that have ushers, the Alamo Draft Houses and such, apparently those aren't that good anymore either. In fact, the workers at the Alamo Draft House, one of them, recently unionized because I don't remember the whole story, but I think something to the effect of the company was bought by a venture capital company or something like that, and they made Alamo Draft House worse according to these employees, and they're the employees, so like they probably know more than we know. I've heard this from other people too, though. Like, I used to live in Philadelphia where we didn't have Alamo Draft Houses. I would say like, oh, I wish I could go to Alamo Draft House to watch Cats. That seems like a blast. And now that I'm around New York again, and there are Alamo Draft Houses, I say like, you want to go to the Alamo Draft House? And people say, it's not that good anymore. It's too expensive, and it's like, it's not very good. But most movie theaters are not very good now. I wouldn't say there's any movie theater I know in like the North Jersey, Manhattan movie theater that doesn't have the same couple of problems that they all have, and things that make me and a lot of people I know just not want to go to movie theaters anymore. And so rule number 1, I think every movie theater should be like the 2024 Super Bowl halftime show, at least one usher. It's a bad joke. Now, people will say, why? What do you want ushers for? You don't need ushers in movie theaters. Whenever I say this, people always say, well, people don't make noise at my movie theaters. My movie theaters are nice and quiet. I can't. What dystopian wasteland are you watching your movies in? So for people who don't believe this is a thing, if it's not, why is like every movie start with a little skit or something where the movie theater tells me to turn off my phone and be quiet? Please, begs with me. They've been doing it for decades. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman just caught one of those as Deadpool and Wolverine that I saw in theaters when I saw Furiosa. Like, they still have to tell us. Phones didn't come out last week. They've been around for a while. They've been ringing for a while. This is not a new development. However, we still need to send all the movie stars out at the beginning of the movie to say, please God, please turn off the phones, please. That being said, forget about the phones, because I do think phones are the worst, and phones are bad and a new thing, right? There's other problems that have been going on for a while. People talk during a movie, and it's distracting, and it's annoying. And listen, I don't want to sound like the guy that's mad at Dennis the Menace. I don't remember his name. Mr. Wilson. I don't want to sound like Mr. Wilson yelling at those damn kids, because it's not just kids, it's adults too. But I don't know. It does seem like we as a society just have different expectations about what a movie is going to be. And I will say, there's movies where people talk and have fun and it's great. And like, I'm not against cheering at Avengers Endgame. I'm not against you know, reacting during a scary movie, not against laughing during comedy, and I'm not against like going to Minions and then there's lots of kids making lots of noise. Like, it's Minions. It is what it is. What I'm against are specific things that have happened in my lifetime that I find generally insane. Children of 10, during the climax of Zero Dark 30, they came with their parent and they were just making noise through the whole bit where they get Bin Laden. One that I can remember, a person behind me at a packed screening of X-Men Days of Future Past, translating the entire movie, all of the dialogue spoken, to their, I'm going to say mother, in Spanish. They planned to go in and just translate the entire movie, and that's kind of insane to me. Now, in some of these instances, I'm fine with telling people to be quiet, but also we're running into a problem here, right? It is not my responsibility to keep order at this movie theater. This is not the Lord of the Flies. How is there not a person in charge from the movie theater that is ready to say everyone in the movie should be quiet? And like, if you're gonna say, well, maybe people don't want to be quiet, well, Deadpool and Wolverine just yelled at you. So there's some expectation from some filmmakers and studios that this is how we'll watch the movies, is quietly without phones going off. So the idea of someone enforcing that doesn't seem that crazy. But I think the problem is, there's a comedian I really like, I think it was named Bargatze, had a joke about a friend of his who he played a joke on him and he bit their McDonald's like sandwich, McDonald's sandwich, their Big Mac, before they ate it while they were in the bathroom or something, and pretended that the people behind the counter who made the sandwich took the bite out of it. And the friend went to go get in a fight with this person. And Nate says in the joke, it's like, that's insane, because the person who takes the bite of random sandwiches has nothing to lose. They're clearly not in a place where they're gonna go, all right, I'm sorry, you got me. Like, if that person existed, they're the most dangerous McDonald's worker that ever lived. I think there's some people who, if you tell them to be quiet at a movie theater, they're like, sorry, I didn't realize I was making noise. Everybody knows that you shouldn't talk at all. So hypothetically, zero tolerance policy, any noise would be noise. But some people think they can make less noise and it's fine. But other people are gonna be like, yeah, I don't care. That's why I'm making noise. I'm not considerate of other people. And you telling me that you don't like that when I make noise, it's like, well, I'm gonna keep doing that. And that sometimes ends in fights at movie theaters. People in America have guns. There are stories about people getting shot at movies because of altercations at movie theaters. Like, that's a nightmare. But so the idea that it is my job as a person watching the movie to maintain order at the movie theater feels insane. If you go to a play, they have ushers. If you go to a library, the librarian is expected to shush you. If you are in the quiet car on your train, the conductor will kick you out if you're making noise. And I don't think this is crazy here. I think every movie theater should have one guy, one big guy, and they are a bouncer. You can even maybe hire bouncers when they're not doing bouncer work. Like, they're, you know, bars aren't open constantly. Maybe there's bars that open later. They can do movie theater shift before that. This person is just at the movie theater. They're not collecting tickets. They're in the movie theater kind of walking around, you know, making sure everything's good, making sure nobody's talking, nobody's got their phones out. And like, when someone makes noise, it is the movie theater's job to deal with it. Maybe like this used to be what they did at Alamo Drafthouse, I believe. You would like flash them a card or something, like a white card that they gave you. And then that would be a thing like, oh, see this guy? Yeah, he's talking. And then you get their attention. But there's got to be something. We need to do something, because like, I am now expecting to have a bad time at a movie theater because some weird thing happens half the time. And it's not always like the really extreme examples of like a bunch of kids in the front row of a packed Infinity War screening are on their tablets through the beginning of the movie, but it's things like that. And I'm very like cool with giving you a chance. You know, if someone's phone rings, I'm not gonna shush them or yell at them or something because maybe they forgot. They turn it off. That's happened many times, and that is cool. But I don't know, man. I feel like this has always been a problem. It's gotten worse because of COVID, and like since COVID, people have started watching movies with their phones out, which is fine at home. And then it's become a thing where they go to a movie and they just assume, oh yeah, I should take my phone out. And many times I've seen people take out their phones and like try to Instagram part of the movie to their friends. So like, just crazy shit that an usher could deal with. Okay, so that's prescription one. I just want one usher, just one per theater, who goes around to the different theaters. And if someone's making noise or someone's causing trouble, they will kick them out. And I want them to kick them out. That's why I want big guys. I don't want like some 16-year-old kid who is working here for minimum wage, because that person also doesn't want to you know, potentially start a fight, but like someone physically imposing that will make most people go like, all right, I'm not going to start a big fight with this person. That's what we need. Number two, second thing, this is a little simpler. Better air filters. This is a COVID era thing that I thought we would fix. The air in movie theaters in general is kind of gross, but like just in general, COVID still exists. I know people don't like to hear about it as much, and some people will say it's not as severe, which I also, with that, I'm like, well, I don't know, man. It's only been around for like 4 years. It takes a while to figure out long-term effects of things like this. But forgetting about all that, there's just other people who have health issues that make getting COVID something that is more dangerous for them. And I understand we didn't want to wear masks. Like, I don't think it's that unreasonable of an ask to wear them, but sure, that was something people didn't want to do. But like good high quality air filtration was supposed to be the thing that we were going to do. We were going to put money towards that, because even if you're like, look, I don't care about COVID, there's going to be more stuff like COVID, and maybe COVID will get worse. Like maybe COVID will mutate into super mega COVID. And then what? Like, do we want it to spread immediately to everybody? And movie theaters are a place where, you know, ideally 100 people are sitting in a room. Everybody's eating or laughing or screaming or whatever. So lots of air is being exchanged. And it's an inside area, so the air doesn't really have too many places to go. And yes, some movie theaters have good air filtration. All I want is a movie theater by me to open that just says, we have the best air filters. We got, you know, I don't even know what they'd be called, double 15x90 air filters. And I'd look it up and go, wow, that is the good one. Because if that movie theater existed that was advertising how good their air filters were, you know what else? I just assume the rest of the stuff at the movie theater is good. I would assume the popcorn is clean. I would assume they don't have bugs or infestations of rats. I would assume you're not going to get bed bugs from the seats. So that's the second thing. First thing, usher. Second thing, better air filtration. Third thing, this one's a little trickier, and I don't know how to do this, but I know what it is. Like, I know what we would need to do. Movie theaters would need to do. I'm not a lawyer. The big movie theaters, Regal, AMC, you know, Cinemark, need to get together. They can do this independently too. I mean, this would be dangerous for them, but at this point, you got to do something, right? Like, the current state of movie theaters is dangerous, but they have to make deals with the movie studios. And they say, we will show the Fall Guy at the movie studio with this, you know, whatever agreement it is we make, like it'll play on this many theaters, and we will get this cut of the profits or whatever, and there'll be this promotional item that we sell at the concession stand. When they're making that deal, this has to go in every deal now. If the movie goes on VOD or streaming within a certain amount of time, let's say 4 months, they are able to sue the movie studio or get some sort of money from the movie studio, like share in the profits. But that's hard because, you know, the studios can always do fancy stuff with lawyers and make the money all disappear. But I think like maybe just a flat fine that they can take from the studios if they do that. I think that this is maybe the biggest problem movie theaters have right now, is that all these other things I've said about why I don't like movie theaters, it's expensive, people are loud, they have their phones out, the air is gross, all that stuff. But on top of it, you didn't used to have a choice. Like, either you saw Man of Web in the movie theater, or you had to wait 6 months until it came to your house. Now, not only is that not the amount of time it takes, what it seems like has happened is the movie companies have gotten so reactive, and they have VOD and they have platforms they want to put this content on, that they see the Fall Guy have a not good opening weekend compared to what it costs and, you know, the amount of money it needs to make, and go, we'll put it on streaming in 2 weeks. And you get on demand that movie in 2 weeks after it came out. So I think it has gone from people expect the movies to come out sooner to people saying, well, if nobody goes to see this movie in the first couple of weeks, they'll put it on VOD. And I would rather watch it at my house because I can take breaks and I, you know, don't have to get dressed and I don't have to deal with teenagers, all this stuff. So if that's the case, like, it's almost, we've almost incentivized people to not go to the movie theater so that they can get it earlier at home, where it is cheaper and popcorn is cheaper and all those other things I said. And that is a decision I imagine that the movie studios make, because they're the ones that are in charge of the movie. This is why the movie theaters seem like they're kind of left out to dry when this happens. Because when you hear that the Fall Guy is going to be on VOD next week, guess what? People that were thinking about going to see it maybe this week probably won't. Certainly some of them won't, and they'll just wait for it to come on VOD. So the movie theaters need to figure out a way to get together or do it individually, but it needs to be a form of like collective bargaining. They need to say, listen, movie theaters, we will show your movies, but you have to guarantee you will not put them on streaming or on VOD within 6 months of their release or something. And if you do, you pay us a huge penalty or something like that. Something like that needs to happen. And then the movie studios need to start advertising this. They need to advertise, this comes out on February 14th and it gets a home release in October. Like, none of this like, oh, it's on theaters February 14th and then, well, you know, who knows? Maybe it'll be on Netflix within 2 months. Who's to say? The studios need to set an expectation that if we want to see this movie within 6 months, the only way to do that is by going to a movie theater. And I think that this is incredibly reasonable. I think that the VOD market and streaming is the biggest individual problem that they need to solve, and it's got to be something like this. I will admit this is tricky. I don't know how it can be done. But like I've heard other stories about like Disney putting in rules that if you don't show a Star Wars movie for X amount of weeks, they won't give you other Disney movies. So like these rules are made, these negotiations happen at certain points. I think we're going to get to a point where the movie theaters, and maybe we're there now, we're like, we got nothing else to lose. Like the movie theaters can make a threat, and maybe if you made this threat 10 years ago, it would be like, well, you're going to put the Star Wars movie in. If you don't do that, you're going to fail. But now the movie theaters can say, well, we're probably going to fail if you do what you're doing. So at least this is the only way we're going to get out of this. And that gives the movie theaters, feels like a lot more leverage than they usually have. Because the movie studios need the movie theaters. They're not just going to be able to give us the movies. Like maybe they think all the movie theaters are going to close, and then they're going to build up a new infrastructure of, you know, Disney movie theater, Sony movie theater, all that stuff, which already sounds like a nightmare. But it's hard. It's hard to set up that infrastructure. We have it. We can fix it. It's not that tricky. Ushers, air filtration, strict release windows. That, I think, those are 3 things that we need to do. And we need to have those commercials where the Domino's CEO comes out and says, the pizza was bad, I'm sorry, guys. And then the AMC CEO comes out and says, you know what? Things have been kind of a mess recently, and here's what we're going to do to fix movie theaters. And then, when we go to the movie theaters, we see it. This is a change that we can immediately notice. One last thing. I think the people that work at movie theaters, for the most part, are great. I've had nothing but good experiences with the actual people that sell the tickets and give you the popcorn and clean the movie theater. And anybody like that's doing that job seems to be cool. It's the people that manage the movie theaters, and then like some sort of investors that come in and buy the company and then manage it worse. The people that are at the movie theater are doing their best, and I appreciate it. So those are my 3 things. And sure, there's other things I think you could change. There could be specific, I don't think this would be a good idea because of what it would say, but if like there was an option, and it wasn't just the matinee, but like the option was, this is the 10 p.m. screening, it is the quiet screening. Maybe just this is the one that the usher's going to be in for, and maybe we don't have to hire an usher, we just get the biggest guy that works here and have him do it. And that is one where it was a 0 tolerance policy for if your phone comes out, if you make noise, they'll shush you and then they will drag you out of the movie theater. Like, I think that's reasonable. The problem is if there were quiet showings, then that would imply that all the rest of the showings are the ones where it's okay to take your phones out, and I don't think that's a good idea. However, with the way things are going now, that is just what all the movie theaters are the take your phones out and make lots of noise movie theater. So, you know, at least that way, we would have a certain movie theater that you would know is going to be the quiet one. I don't know. That one I don't love. The rest of them I love though. So thank you for watching. I hope movie theaters get saved. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe and all that stuff, and I will see you around. Bye.